This week is a big week. We're taking everything we learned from weeks 2 through 5, and we're going to apply them to simple syntactic structures to build up semantic trees for sentences, so we can understand what declarative sentences mean in English, and what the meaning of a VP is, what the meaning of a noun is, what the meaning of a sentence level is. So this video is on syntax, but before we start, we have to talk about compositionality and really what our theory is. So to remind you from what we talked about in week 1, there is an infinite number of grammatical sentences. And even if you've never heard a sentence before, you can still understand what it means by understanding the meanings of the parts and how the structure is put together. So for instance, in this absurd sentence, Steven asked me if I could speaker his walls up so he could blast Katy Perry's new CD Christmas in Chilliwack for the neighbors. Well, we definitely have never heard the phrase speaker his walls up, but we understand what it means. It's a phrasal verb, and it just means to put speakers all over the walls. Katy Perry's new Christmas CD, obviously it's not real, but we understand what these things mean. So the important takeaway from everything, and the important assumption, is that the meaning of anything complex can be determined by the meaning of its parts and the way those parts are combined. So, as we saw with not ambiguity earlier in the course, structural ambiguity to propositional logic, the structure of the sentence determines its different interpretations. Now, when we do compositional semantics, what we're doing is something very similar to what computers can do. We're using algorithms and rules to take meanings of certain words, to build them up into meanings of certain word categories, to build into the meanings of phrases, and eventually get to the meaning of a sentence. So we can do this algorithmically, which means just a set of procedures. So when we do semantic analysis, we're not doing semantic analysis just on words. We're doing it on a syntactic object. So on, say, the verb level, at the verb phrase level, at the tense phrase or sentence level. So syntax occurs first, and then semantics occurs after. So imagine we have this sentence. It is not true that Toby teaches English literature and Kay teaches math. Well, again, there's two different interpretations for this. Either not negates everything, so we get that syntactic structure and then we do semantics on it, or it is not true that Toby teaches English is our only thing that's negated, and Kay teaches math. So we build that syntactic structure up, and then we apply semantic analysis to it. So whether we do this in English, which is what we'll be doing in this course, or do it in any other language, the principles of semantic composition are universal. So here I have the sentence, he eats fish, in 3 different languages, English, Japanese, and I think this is Malagasy. Sorry, I made these slides like a year ago, so I don't quite remember what language it is, but I think it's Malagasy. So, of course, these individual words have different connotations. For instance, in Japanese, when you hear this, karega, typically you only use that for boyfriends, but we can translate it as he. So the associations are slightly different, but when we do universal composition here, so when we take a look at the meaning of the verb phrase, no matter which language we're in, no matter what the order of the verb and the object are, no matter how the words are pronounced, these will all have the same meaning. This is just how semantic composition works. So, truth-conditional semantics, there's a few terms we have to introduce. So, linguistic meaning is associated between a linguistic expression and an object in the model or world. So you can think of the world as being the real thing, and the model being like a mathematical way of representing a world. So a model has certain things that happen in it, and we evaluate truth against it. We evaluate our objects against it. When you have an expression and it's associated with something, that's called its denotation. So if I have Paul, a dog, then I can associate it, and that's its denotation. Okay, so different types of linguistic expressions denote different types of objects, and I made sure that we've talked about this at least a couple times to keep your mind there, why we have math. So proper names like Stephen, Jesse, Mr. Clean, these are elements or these are objects. So these come from set theory. When you have verbs like eats, likes, and sleeps, these are going to be pairs of things. So this comes from our relations with verbs. Sentences like Jesse likes Mr. Clean, these are truth values. So this comes from propositional logic. So we use all the things we've done to build sentences up. Now, it's important, if you want to understand the meaning, you have to know whether a sentence describes a situation truthfully or not. So in order to evaluate a sentence, you need some sort of situation, you need some sort of model, you need facts in order to determine whether something's true or not. So when we build our semantics, we have to account for truth conditions, so things from propositional logic, things from set theory, define them in that way. So as a reminder from propositional logic, any sentence can be true or false. It depends on the situation or circumstance. So Tom Cruise took a cold shower on the evening of August 9th, 1995. That's either true or false. We don't know if this is true or false because we don't have the facts. But if we did have the facts, we would be able to tell whether this was true or false. So this is sort of an important thing. If we don't know the facts, but we know what the sentence means, we know what the facts have to be in order for the sentence to be true. So in order for 4 to be true here, we need to know that Tom Cruise actually did take a cold shower on the evening of August 9th, 1995. Now, if we know what the facts are, but we don't know what the sentence means, we can't evaluate it for truth. So I can give you every single fact in the world, and I could, this is a little bit of a weird analogy, but I could say something in, say, ancient Greek. And because you don't understand ancient Greek, you don't know what the sentence means, but you know what the facts in the world are. So that's sort of what that demonstrates. Or even if you come up with a completely new sentence, if you don't know what it means, you can't evaluate it for truth. So here's our formal definition of what meaning is. We say S means P if and only if S is true in some situation V if P happens. So basically, S is a structural description of a sentence. So this could be something like Jesse likes Mr. Clean, and this includes the entire sentence. So I'll just draw a little skeleton here. I won't draw the full thing out, but this could be, say, our structure. So then it's like, what does this structure mean? Well, when is this true? This is a sentence, right? So this will be true if, and then there's some condition. So it's true if something P happens in our situation V. Okay, so this was just a lot of technical stuff. I think it's more interesting to actually look at the actual application of things and then to kind of come back to this after and understand how this definition fits. So we're starting with an incredibly simple syntax. This is simpler than the stuff you even do in 220, and we cannot do something more complicated at this point because we're going to find at the end of this lecture that we're quite limited with this grammar for how we can actually give meanings to things. So here are all the syntactic rules that we have so far in our language. First, what I want to point out is we see this little bar between things. This just means or. So the first one says S can be broken up into a noun and a verb phrase, or S can be broken up into two sentences with a conjunction in the middle, or S can be broken up into a negation and an S. So these are all of our rules. And what we see is that these are associated with tree structures. So as you can see, S going to N and VP would look like this left branch or left tree. S going to S conjunction S would look like this second one. And yes, we are going to have ternary branching trees. So 3 lines, 3 daughters for the conjunction. We could make it 2 daughters, but it just complicates things. So that's something that we can do at a later point or in a later course. Verb phrases can be broken down into transitive verbs. That's what the T means, transitive. So he likes her, that has a noun beside it, or intransitive verbs like VI. And in intransitive verbs, we have predicate adjectives as well. So like is boring, is hungry, is tall. These will all count as intransitive verbs in our system. And or but, all of our operators will go under conjunction, except for it is not the case that, which goes under negation. So all we're doing in this video is we're going to practice a little bit with these tree structures. So for example, I want to write Jack is hungry. Okay, well, I start with a sentence. I break it up into a noun subject, which is Jack, and a verb phrase. And is hungry is an intransitive verb in our system. So we call this VI. We write is hungry. and then we use the triangle to represent that. So I know you might want to do more complicated sentences. You might want to put an NP here because everything that you've been learning in linguistics says this is a noun phrase. We are doing this for a specific reason. Our noun phrases, we don't have determiners yet. We don't know how to do determiners yet. We cannot do that with propositional logic, so we don't use noun phrases, we just use nouns. And the ends at this point in the course all mean proper names. So, using the rules on the previous page, I want you to try to draw tree structures for the following sentences. So you can pause the video, try them out. I assume you'll be successful at this, but I will go through the answers now anyway because it's important to be comfortable with our new system. So A, Sophia likes James. We always start with a sentence. We have a noun subject, we have a verb phrase. Likes is a transitive verb, so this will break up into a VT and an N, and we can just write our words underneath. So Sophia is the subject, likes is the transitive verb, and James is our object here. So that's the sentence for Sophia likes James. B, it is not the case that James is cute. So we're going to have S going to a negation and another S. So negation is going to be, it is not, ... So it is not the case that, and then James is cute will be our second S. So this will be a noun and a verb phrase. And is cute is going to be an intransitive verb consisting of both words is cute. So this would be our syntactic structure for it is not the case that James is cute. At this point, I'm not going to fill in the words for nouns or intransitive verbs. I'm just going to write out the structure for C and D just to save some time. Because really, the words at this point aren't too important. It's just about getting the structure right. So C, Jack is hungry, and it is not the case that James likes Jack. Okay, so we're going to have an S that breaks up into a sentence, a conjunction, and another sentence. So our left sentence is going to be Jack is hungry. So is hungry is going to be an intransitive verb, and we're going to have a noun, subject, Jack. We're going to have and as our conjunction, so and is going to go under conj. And it is not the case that James likes Jack. Okay, so that second sentence will break into a negation and a sentence. So negation is going to be, it is not the case that, and then James like Jack, well, we'll have a noun subject, a verb phrase. The verb phrase will break into a transitive verb, and the noun object, Jack. So I guess I can write a few of these out. Jack is hungry, and it is not the case that, and then what is this? This is James, this is likes, and this is Jack. Okay, that is C. Now we're going to do D, and there's two structures here. This is an ambiguous sentence. It is not the case that Jack is hungry or Sophia is boring. So it's either negating just the first thing or it's negating the entire thing. It is not the case that Jack is hungry or Sophia is boring. So we can draw our structures here. Our first one, let's just have negation, modify, what do we want? Let's do it is not the case that Jack is hungry or Sophia is boring. So we have a conjunction in the middle, which is going to be or. On the right side, we're going to have Sophia is boring. So this is going to be our noun subject, a verb phrase with an intransitive verb, which is boring. On the left side, we're going to have it is not the case that Jack is hungry. So our S is going to break up into a negation and an S, with it is not the case that under negation, and S is going to be Jack is hungry. So we'll have a noun, a verb phrase, and that'll be a intransitive verb. And we would put our Jack under N and is hungry under the VI. So that is one interpretation. The other interpretation is where we have Jack is hungry or Sophia is boring is being negated. So we start with an S, we do a negation, and then we get to our next S. So negation is negating everything. And then here under the second S, we're going to have Jack is hungry or Sophia is boring. So these will be our two S's on the left and the right of the conjunction. The left is going to be an NVPVI, which would be Jack is hungry, and we'll see the same structure on the right, which would be Sophia is boring. So we have interpretation number 2 on the left, and we have interpretation number 1 on the right. So 2 different structures for the same sentence. And I think that's it for syntax. Yeah. So that's it for syntactic structure. This is just an introduction to the syntactic system that we're using for our first fragment of English F1. All of the assignments in this lecture will use this fragment. We'll expand on it a little bit on your assignment and a little bit on your first test, but we're going to find limitations very quickly. So if you have any questions, as always, discussion board, email, I'll get back to you when I can.